Gabriel Montoya of MaxBoxing.com. Joined me last Sunday. We talked about drug testing. It had just come out that Berto had flunked his drug test against Victor Ortiz. Andre Berto, Victor Ortiz no longer happening. Josito Lopez now going to take his spot and fight Ortiz. He also talks about the Amir Lamont Peterson failed drug test. We talk Floyd Mayweather and more. Gabriel Montoya, boxing scene, Max Boxing, leave it in the ring. He does it all, and he also does this on the Sports Buffet podcast.
Hopefully this is the first of many interviews with Gabriel Montoya. He helps out with MaxBoxing.com, Leave It in the Ring Radio, also BoxingScene.com. That's enough to keep somebody busy. And Gabriel, it seems like all this drug stuff lately is enough to keep somebody busy. We lose a Con Peterson fight. Now Berto Ortiz has hit the ice too. Talk a little bit about the Berto Ortiz fight and what exactly was the case that happened.
What happened with that, it's definitely something to keep you busy. It's been kind of dominating my life for, I don't know, the better part of 2 years. It's kind of a side project, all the writing I do, for Max Boxing. And yesterday I just seemed to be able to be with the LA contributor for Boxing Scene. But these last 2-3 weeks have been insane. From Lamont Peterson, first broke the story about him testing positive for testosterone to now kind of coming close to breaking it. I know exactly what I knew, how soon I knew compared to everybody else on the positive test for Berto. It's been nonstop, man. It's been very exhilarating. And boxing is in the midst of a serious revolution, I think, in terms of its education in the world of anti-doping and performance-enhancing drugs. Berto, who's had his camp, when they postponed the first rematch with Victor Ortiz. It was supposed to be February. They moved it back. It was supposed to be June 23rd. And Berto moved his training camp from Ten Goose here in Los Angeles. And then he was still working with his trainer, Tony Morgan. They moved to Winter Haven, Florida, where he's from. And he was training at home. And May 3rd, they took a sample of the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association, VADA as they're known. And that sample tested positive. And so here we are now. Thursday they tested the B sample. B sample came back positive, and Golden Boy has been informed, I think as of Friday. They knew about it actually Saturday night, May 12th. And then they knew about the B sample immediately Friday, and then the news broke. And so here we are.
All right, I know the Peterson case and the Berto case are a little different, I assume, because Peterson was kind of actually the one that called for drug testing with Con, from what I understand. Then he gets busted. But whose career would you say is hurt more by this, or are they equal in terms of Peterson and Berto?
They're both very similar cases. And what Berto tested for, Peterson tested positive for synthetic testosterone. He was injected with a soy testosterone pellet, which is normal. Most testosterone is made from soy or yams. I don't know if the procedure was normal. I tend to think he might have been misdiagnosed. They were saying he had low testosterone. This Dr. John A. Thompson of the Desert Oasis Clinic in Las Vegas, Nevada, they injected him, I believe, in November 12th with a testosterone pellet. And then several months later, after the first fight, he tested positive for testosterone when he entered the VADA test. The very first sample they took, I think it was, it was March 19th here in Los Angeles. They took the sample. It was tested positive April 12th. They let him know April 13th. What Berto tested positive for is something called norandrosterone. And that is basically a metabolic byproduct of the drug nandrolone. This is kind of more of we're talking like late 90s steroid, anabolic steroid, kind of a testosterone derivative, if you will. Makes you bigger, faster, stronger, helps with recovery. That's kind of what it's really known for. And like you would say, they call it trace amounts or ultra trace amounts in Berto's system. We don't know the exact science just yet. I know the limit is like 2 nanograms per milliliter of urine. Anything above that, but just 2 nanograms, and to put it in perspective, like how small this is. Take a grain of salt and smash it, and then take the particles from that and smash it in. And maybe one of those tiny particles that you can't see is about the speck of 2 nanograms of nandrolone. And that little speck would make you test positive for like 6 to 18 months.
2 times now, Golden Boy has gotten the shaft on this, as their fighters, Amir Khan and Victor Ortiz, have been the victim of the failed drug test guys fighting them. Gabriel, are they upset about this?
3 with VADA, and then there was one where they fought in an extra lab for 1 week of testing for the $7 and the Matisse fight. So they've been in the forefront they weren't quite prepared. I think legally, I don't think they really understood the process. I think that's what like I said, we're in a period of education right now, and enlightenment in boxing. They're understanding what everybody else in anti-doping knows. The guys that have gone through cycling, MLB has gone through this, where now in boxing, like, if somebody tests positive in an MLB, generally they let everybody know after the season or several months later.
Right.
They make their money. But they also, they can put another guy in. They can replace him. With boxing, you lose an opponent, and that's all that promotion that you put into it. You can't really just plug another guy in there. It's just not the way it works. So I guess the difference in these two was that Al Heyman was involved. He's the advisor to Berto. He found out and he immediately let Golden Boy know. This is what Golden Boy is not really grasping, in my opinion, is that for privacy reasons, that's why you have an A and B sample. They have a test positive, you let him know about his A sample, and then it's up to him to decide how he wants to handle it. Like Ryan Braun and the National League MVP tested with a TE ratio of 20-1 for testosterone. He was very dirty. They didn't even bother testing the B sample. They went after chain of custody, and he won his case and got his 50-game suspension lifted. And he had to keep his MVP. Peterson's camp didn't really do that. They kind of disclosed everything, and they disclosed everything and kind of screwed themselves in a way, opened themselves up to scrutiny. It was nice that they were so forthright. One of those people, Peterson's people also just held off for 3 weeks. They didn't disclose that they did testosterone in the first place. That was a big mistake. And then later on, when they tested positive, they took them the B sample testing dirty for them to admit, our guy had a testosterone pellet in him. Put it in him like in November. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. For those people, they seem to be, they've hired Aaron Jacobs, a high-powered anti-doping warrior, and they've kind of, lawyered up and gotten very quiet. But they've also, it seems like they're really cooperating, and they cooperated with Golden real fast. Al Heyman told Richard Chamber immediately after the A sample tested positive. He told him that evening. I know Al Heyman found out early that morning. And then they dealt with it. They prepared for another contingency. So I think there's a learning curve here. And they're kind of they're starting to get that. But the important thing here is that not to blame VADA. VADA did their job. They've actually got a better batting average in boxing than USADA does, who hasn't caught anybody. VADA, through their kind of revolutionary screening techniques, are catching people. And that's a great thing. And they're letting people know before fighters get in the ring, which is an even better thing. I think what we're going to see is every time a guy tests positive, each camp is going to handle it different, how they proceed. Some are going to lawyer up. Some are going to immediately test that B sample. Some guys are going to stall, hoping that maybe the fight can go through if they hold off long enough. It's going to be a different process with everybody. I think that's what we have to understand. One of many things we have to understand.
Now, Golden Boy, I know, and Top Rank kind of have their own promotional issues in terms of working with each other, none of which really is drug test related. But do you think at all this at some point makes people want to stay in-house in terms of promoting? I mean, is it any way that Golden Boy doesn't trust, Berto's promoter or whatnot, or is it that it really has nothing to do with it's just a random fighter?
I think Golden Boy has a great relationship with Berto's promoter, who would be Al Heyman. Well, he's not really his promoter, he's his advisor. He's the promoter of note, but Al is calling the shots. They have a wonderful relationship. Adrian Broner's another Heyman fighter, and Mitchell is another one. They work with Golden Boy. They've been working closely together for years. It's a bit of a silent partnership. It's becoming more prominent as of late. So, I don't know where we go in terms of in-house. I mean, there's USADA and then there's VADA, and the difference between them, USADA is the United States Anti-Doping Association. VADA is the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association. They are an independent group run by sponsorships. The fighters can pay for the testing themselves. But there's many significant differences between the two. One is that, USADA charges about an estimated $100,000. That's for 2 fighters per fight for all this extra testing. We know that they don't use carbon isotope ratio testing as a screening tool. Sometimes they do. I would say it's less than 5% of the time they do that. And if you ask them to verify that, they won't tell you. If you ask them whether in all 3 of his fights he's been tested using carbon isotope ratio testing, they might say yes. But if you said, did he come back next to all those tests? I don't know if they would tell you that. Or any of the fighters, not just Floyd, but there's Shane Mosley, Victor Ortiz, And now Miguel Cotto have also done the Mayweather testing, as I call it, which is kind of a type of USADA testing. Now, VADA, on the other hand, always uses carbon isotope ratio testing as a screen test. It's how they caught them on Peterson. And why that's significant is that test, which has existed for 12 years, catches synthetic testosterone. The USADA system kind of looks for red flags. They look for the standard TB ratio, or it looks like the guy is kind of using drugs, and then they use carbon isotope. So you use it right off the bat, you're looking for the drugs, and you're just cutting out the middleman. And so VADA is able to charge, by just going right to the source, $20,000 per fight. And they're fully transparent. You get to find out the results of things. And we find out before the fight. I don't know what USADA's policy is, because nobody will answer me on that question. Whether or not they hold the positive until afterwards, or what happens. Of all the groups, and as much as I've covered this sport, in this particular subject in this sport, USADA has yet to do an interview with me and has not responded to any requests for it. I wonder why.
Before we move on, do Peterson or Berto ever get another? I don't know how big of money fights these were. I assume it was probably at least Peterson's biggest payday. Berto, I would assume, was going to make a decent chunk as well. Do either one of these guys get a big money fight, or is this staying them forever? I know I kind of touched on that earlier, but
I wouldn't be surprised. I'll just say this: I wouldn't be surprised to see Peterson in a top-ranked card in Texas at some point. I think Berto will be fine. Al Heyman's very well connected with the networks. He'll be fine. I think he'll get. So one of them will get 9 months. One of them will get 6 months. I think these are both cases of inadvertent use. I think that's the other part of the education, is to understand the drugs that they're using. Nandrolone is something that could be, you can test positive for nandrolone by taking a combination of like protein and creatine and then being dehydrated, overworking, overtraining. Foods like liver and different kind of animal parts have been known to be contaminated. There's a lot of false positives with nandrolone. I don't think, like, people who are trying to connect citric content to this is just absolutely ridiculous. A guy as advanced as him never gives me nandrolone. Stays in the system 6 to 18 months, and it's incredibly hard to detect. And this is a guy that was never detected. He was turned in by someone. He turned in one of his syringes, and that's how Balco and all that happened. It just makes no sense, and Conte wasn't even working with him at the time. He worked with him for the Yanazovic fight, and that was it. He was supplying him with, like, supplements from his company's snack, but I'm sure a lot of people were that aren't doing steroids. I think Berto will be fine. I think that what these guys have to understand, and their glorious blunder, both Peterson and Berto, they were the ones that asked for the testing, and their glorious blunder is that they didn't monitor what was going into their bodies, and they didn't fully disclose what was going into their bodies, and now they're going to both pay the price. But because of that, boxing's better. It's not like it's really necessarily safer, but it's certainly cleaner, and it's more enlightened. They're more educated now. So I think going forward, people think this is the end of these stories. I think this is just the beginning. It's a huge revolution going on. There was a big meeting yesterday in Montreal, rather Friday. WADA founding chairman Jeff Pound met with the WADA board of directors, World Anti-Doping Association, or agency rather, up in Montreal, Canada. And they were discussing how they were going to be testing in the summer games and adding carbon isotope ratio testing, target testing, specific athletes in this summer game. So this Peterson case, more so than the Berto case kind of keeps us going to better testing in boxing. But the Peterson case, the use of CIR testing to catch testosterone users, which I believe, and Victor Conte and all the anti-doping people believe, is a real problem drug and drug of choice of athletes across the globe. It's going to really change things. It's going to change the games this summer. I'll tell you that.
I doubt I'm the only person that's thought about this next topic, but I know you can't pull it off on such a short notice necessarily, but Amir Khan loses a dance partner. Victor Ortiz loses a dance partner. Could that be a possible match sooner than later?
No, I don't think they'll go sooner. They might go towards it, but I think the goal was to beat Peterson and go after Floyd, maybe after one fight at welterweight. I think Golden Boy is getting a little smart, and they don't want to, not getting a little smart, that's kind of rude. I think they're being wise in this move, in that I don't think they would sacrifice either guy to each other. I think they realize they've got two potential moneymakers in Ortiz and Khan, and now they both look like the clean fighters that they are because they went through this testing. I think they would kind of maybe move both of them back towards the Mayweather fight. You can either successive one, or if one of them happens to beat them, then they get the fight. There's things that can be done with those guys rather than fighting each other just yet. I think Golden Boy is kind of learning patience.
Right.
They're growing up as a promoter. You know, they're very young. I think we won't see that one just yet.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, you know, I would think out of Khan and Ortiz, I would think the one guy they would rather not sacrifice would be Khan, because, you know, you've already seen Ortiz lose to Floyd. I know Ortiz had that scrap, I believe, with Maidana, to where he kind of quit and his heart was called into question. So I think Ortiz probably has more of a long road to go, where Amir Khan, you know, really doesn't have as much baggage is not the right word, but I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah, I think one thing they're both have been, you think you're rebuilt, and into that Berto fight, and then he got unhinged against Floyd. Khan's been on the rebuilding path and has been doing very well. Even though he lost to Peterson, he's shown a lot of heart, and people are polarized about him, but he's a top fighter, you know, and I think he's a problem. But it's an interesting fight, though, because they're both kind of flawed in their own ways.
Right.
I wouldn't mind seeing it, and they're comparable in size. I mean, I see Khan in the gym. He's not much smaller than Victor. He's a welterweight waiting to happen.
Right.
I don't think he hits that hard at 140, and he's probably not going to hit that hard at 147, but he's fast as all get out. He's one of the fastest people I've ever seen in person. So that's an interesting fight. I just think the way they used to do it, you'd build towards that fight and make it something that we would not only want to see in Vegas, but that people would go to see in Vegas. Or if you did that in an L.A. setting or New York, I'd probably put it in Staples Center personally.
Right.
But you build towards it. And neither guy sold tickets in Vegas. It's just, Vegas is a very specific place anymore. You know, it's Mayweather and Pacquiao, and everybody else, you know, kind of get in line. And you can get Martinez there. Mexicans can travel. But everybody else is, you know, not really so much a Vegas fighter. You got to go regionally.
Right. Just a couple more questions. Do you see the fact that Khan, do you see Khan and Mayweather fighting before the year's over? And do you see Floyd fighting before the year's over? 100% definite.
I think both of those things will happen. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we'll see. We got a long ways to go, 7 months to go. But yeah, I think yes to both of those questions. I think that was the plan.
Right.
To be perfectly honest, and I think that was certainly the contingency plan once everything hit the fan with the Khan fight. That they wanted to make sure to secure the date and then hopefully move to a Floyd fight was what I was told, like end of the year.
Right.
So we won't see that other fight everybody always asks about for probably another year.
How many more times do you see Floyd fighting realistically, and what do you think his opponent list is?
I would say 3. I would go Khan, maybe an Ortiz rematch. Although after we went there with Cotto, it was, you know, they don't want to go through something too physical. Maybe a Cotto rematch, and I think Pacquiao's got it. It's going to happen. I think it'll happen, but it'll be like way past the time.
Right. No.
If I could take 3, it would be one of those in that combination.
So basically, Floyd and Manny will both stay away from Sergio Martinez as far as humanly possible?
I think so.
Okay.
It's a shame, but I think so. I would love to see Floyd versus Sergio. That's really the only fight I want to see right now.
Right.
I don't think Pacquiao will be competitive with him. But you never know. It's not big fights, and you know, Manny looked like crap against Marquez. I wasn't terribly impressed with Floyd. I mean, I was impressed with a really good fight with Cotto, but he didn't ever take over to the point where I went, wow, if this was Manny Pacquiao hitting him like this and using that same combination that Cotto was, we might have a kind of a good-ass fight here.
Right.
A dangerous fight. So, I don't know. You know, I still kind of want to see that fight. It kind of re-intrigued me, in terms of that's a word, about Pacquiao Mayweather again. But Martinez Mayweather is really the fight to me.
Right.
It'll wait till I don't, you know, all the marbles.
Right. I was very actually I'm kind of on the other side of the coin here from you, I think, because I was very impressed with Floyd. I think maybe he's slowing down a little bit, but when he's slowing down, I think that brings him back to everybody else's speed. I thought he took some shots from Cotto, and you know the funny thing is, I thought it was funny how his corner was almost, you know, laughing at the fact that his nose was bleeding the whole time, and it never became a concern. But I think if Floyd could get Sergio and Manny, I mean, what else has the guy got to do? You know, he's cleaned out everything he could clean.
I mean, if I was looking at legacy and I was him, yeah, you know, I mean, I think he just knows that the Mayweather fight with Pacquiao is like the biggest fight ever.
Right.
And just hold off as long as you can. But like, I would go for Sergio. Go for that. Even if you lose, you know, I mean, you fight for greatness. Maybe that's the thing with Floyd that's always frustrated me, is he didn't fight for greatness. He waited until Cotto had been through a bunch of wars, and maybe the fight happened at the right time, though, because Cotto, I think, really understood himself after that loss to Margarito. He became a better version of himself, even if he's kind of has some miles on him. He fought a lot smarter. He fought a beautiful fight, I thought, against Mayweather. And you're right. I mean, Mayweather showed depth in that fight. Showed guts. Maybe not the variety of offense that I'm used to, but he did make some serious adjustments, looping his right hand around the guard, fighting off the ropes. It was a beautiful fight. I've watched it a few times, Well, I watched it a few more. It's probably one of the few Floyd fights that I really enjoy on it.
How did you have it scored, by the way?
Entertainment level. Initially I was really drunk, so I had it a draw. I didn't cover it in Vegas. I took a moral stand against Floyd moving his domestic violence in order to do an HBO pay-per-view.
Right.
So I didn't go. But the second time I watched it was like 7-5, 8-4 Floyd.
Yep.
Probably would get wider, 8-4. It was more 7-5 to me, though, because I thought Cotto made the fight, and you got to score that. There were some rounds where, Floyd landed like the more clean blows, but Cotto did all the work, and you got to score that sometimes. Who would you rather be? And a lot of times I'd rather have been Cotto, because he was just roughing him up. But overall, it was Floyd. I mean, the defense and the clean punching, was superb.
Yeah, and talking to some of your colleagues here in the past couple months, I think we've all agreed too that the guy that would benefit most off a Sergio Martinez Floyd Mayweather fight though is Sergio Martinez, because a lot of the general public is not familiar with Sergio Martinez. He's not the name draw on the card. Floyd obviously is, and it's almost like Floyd puts himself in too much risk. So I think that's probably why I think we both agree that the fight would never happen for that reason, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Sergio's a big dude. He's got a big punch. He really believes in himself. There's nothing about him that's safe for anybody.
Right.
I think it's suicide for Pacquiao to fight him. It's just a smaller dude. I mean,
but I think if Floyd was going to fight him, I think Floyd would strategically try to get it at a catch weight to where Sergio probably would have to sap himself down so low he would look like almost a skeleton walking in there.
He'd have to, 150, 154,
right.
Something like that. I mean, I think Sergio would do it for the money and the notoriety, but what it would do for his career afterwards, endorsements, and just, I thought Floyd, but yeah, they would probably drain him down until there was nothing left, which is a shame. That's not the kind of fight I want to see.
Right, absolutely. Gabriel, go ahead.
I just think if you want to be great, you should take risks.
Right.
Not calculated risks.
Absolutely. Gabriel, final question for you. Definitely appreciate your time. Look forward to doing this again much, much more in the future. A bad week for boxing in the fact of, maybe we lost 2 fights, or a bad few weeks with Berto and Peterson. But at the same time, is it good in a way that it wasn't a major fish that would have, really been the headline on SportsCenter, or really could have done some damage, i.e. a Pacquiao, a Mayweather, or, anybody else you could name?
I don't know. I think the bigger the name, the better it is.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, let's catch them all. If if the biggest name in sports is cheating, we should catch them.
Right.
They should be outed. And I think it's a good thing. I mean, but it depends on how you approach it, how the powers that be approach it. I think one of my big problems is that there's complicity here on a certain level with the commissions. I mean, Melina Lathan, the executive director of the New York Athletic Commission, still has not returned my emails or my calls regarding the 6-to-1 CE ratio, which is greater by 50% than everywhere else in the world. Why is that?
Right.
You won't answer that question. Keith Kaiser, when I first asked him about it, wasn't able to answer my question. Then now he says, well, I don't want to go to 4-to-1 because it's going to be false positives. We're afraid of getting false positives for athletes. Well, let's just see the data on the amount of false positives since 2006, when the rest of the world went to 4-to-1 on the TE ratio. If you don't know what I'm talking about, read my article, New York, Nevada, and the 6-to-1 TE ratio problem in boxing on Max Boxing. Just Google me and PEDs. All these articles will come up.
Yeah, we'll put a link to it.
It bother me. So I look at this all and I say, this is just the beginning. I think we need to go deeper. We got to look at the networks and the commission, the promoters, people that may or may not know what's going on, the trainers, all these strength coaches that are popping up in the gyms, and really just hammer people, bring the truth to the light. I think this is just the beginning. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
So you're okay if, I guess from my point of view, when I was saying, it's a good thing that it didn't catch a major fish, I guess your point of view is if boxing's got to get a black eye or two to really clean itself up, okay.
Yeah, because if you look at MLB, I think there's a very hypocritical policy. They do catch people, but really Brian Braun got away with it. And if you look at MLB too, they're hypocritical. It's like, what's the playoffs? This is supposed to be the anti-steroid league, and they're doing advertisements for low T in the middle of the playoffs. Which is like for testosterone therapy. I mean, how hypocritical can you be? I think if boxing handles it right, and people really do this VADA testing, and you thought it really opens up the books and is transparent, let's find out what's going on with these cheaters. Let's find out, let's make CIR testing mandatory. Forget the HGH testing. I think it's expensive and it's useless. It's not a very good test. I would get rid of the TB ratio urine test and just go to CIR testing. Spend all that money in the right place with the right tool and really catch people. Right now it feels like a U.S. drug war where you're kind of just creating an industry that's called the drug war as opposed to actually fighting and trying to win it. So if boxing wants to win it, I think it's great that we're in SportsCenter catching big-name fighters. If we don't want to win it and we just kind of pretend and act like we do, then it's, I don't know, eventually hopefully I'll root those people out and bring them to life. I think the bigger the better, and just bring on the change. I think we need to embrace it right now.
Gabriel, definitely appreciate your time. Like I said, look forward to doing this again, and we will keep track of all the boxing news through Max Boxing, Leave It in the Ring, and the boxing scene.
My pleasure. Anytime, man. Anytime at all. Take care.